The time is now 7 o'clock.
Older, living alone, and more people in the capital area. This is the state of South Korea's population as it stands. And of course, these are patterns that have been there for the past decade or so, but it seems the rate of increase is growing more rapidly. Aging is inevitable, and the increase in single-person households may be as well. But growing lonelier as a nation and this kind of uber centralization around the capital are some things that can be helped with effective policies on national and community levels. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Monday, January 6th on BEFM, 부산영어방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope you had a pleasant weekend and are ready to start our Monday morning together. Well, today's top story is all about the population, not necessarily maybe the numbers, but how we're living as a nation. First, the where. Not really surprising. More and more people are living in the capital area than ever. And as of last year, the population difference between the capital and the non-capital areas has come to 877,000. On top of that, there is this clear pattern of younger people moving to the capital area and the older population moving out of Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi. You know, speaking of age, the aging population phenomenon is growing stronger despite there having been a rebound in the birth rate last year for the first time in nearly a decade. In areas like Uiseong-gun County, Gyeongbuk, Kunwi-gun County, Daegu, and Gohung-gun County, Gyeongnam. In those three areas, the over 65 population accounted for more than 45% of the total population. This was also evidenced by the rise in elderly single-person households. The over 70 population accounted for over 20% of all single-person households. When you think about it, 20%, that's 1 in 5. And going back to that pattern of the more rapidly aging provincial regions, this rate went up to 24% outside the capital area. So these single-person households, especially the elderly single-person households, are of social concern as these seniors who live alone are statistically more vulnerable in terms of health and safety. And more research shows that socialization is an important factor, not only in mental, but also for physical health. Living alone, aging, sometimes not a choice, obviously, especially the aging part, but being lonely is definitely a preventable matter that can and needs to be addressed on a national level. Text topic. Speaking of living alone, have you ever lived by yourself? Like all on your own, like without a roommate or family? Is this something that you would like to do if you had the opportunity? What skills do you think are needed for someone to live by themselves? 자, 가족이나 룸메이트 없이 오로지 혼자 살아본 경험 있어요? 한 번이라도 나는 혼자 살고 싶다. 아니면 난 절대로 아니다. 혼자 살기 위해 필요한 스킬이나 성향은? There are so many things I think go into living alone. I'll go first. I would love to live alone, just purely on my own, just even for 1 month. 한 달이라도 그냥 오로지 혼자 살아보기 너무 궁금해요. I would love to do it, at least just for 1 month. I say 1 month because, you know, family members may be listening, so 1 month is good enough. You can send in your responses to BFM's live stream, live chat on YouTube. Go to YouTube, the platform, and type in BEFM or 부산영어방송, and you can find our channel subscribe, log in, and chat with our waivers. Also, on your phone, pound 9050 shop 9050. That's going to cost you 100 won. Also on Kakao Talk, we have our own channel. Search for BEFM 부산영어방송 there as well to send in your messages and photos if you want to as well. The ways you can listen to our program: 90.5, 103.3 FM. That's on the radio if you're in the Busan area. Like I said, we're streaming live on YouTube right now. You can also watch again at your leisure. Also, we have two apps, the BFM app and also the Patbang app, where you can listen to our program. Looking ahead to our Monday morning together, what do we have for you? We have Showbiz Buzz with Michael, Bobby with Business Perspectives. Our special interview today, I like this idea, and I'm going to let you also kind of think about this. Doing less for success in the new year. Because this is a time of year where so many people have so many resolutions or goals. Maybe not necessarily a good thing. So doing less to actually attain those goals. How's about that? We're going to talk about that with our expert in hour number 2. And I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:06. These are today's headlines. Court dismisses Yoon's objections to warrant execution. The Seoul Western District Court yesterday dismissed the injunction filed by President Yoon Suk-yeol that sought to invalidate the court's warrant for his detention in a search of the presidential residence. Search ends at Jeju Air crash site. Authorities concluded a week-long search operation at the Jeju airplane crash site at Muan Airport yesterday, with an investigation into the cause of the accident to begin in full. Rallies for and against Yoon's impeachment held over the weekend. Tens of thousands of people gathered near the presidential residence over the weekend to rally for or against the detention of President Yoon Suk-yeol, as the CIO is expected to attempt to detain Yoon again today. Heavy snow blankets capital and Gangwon regions. Multiple accidents were reported in Seoul as heavy snow fell across the wider Seoul area and eastern Gangwon province yesterday. Ukraine launches surprise operation in Kursk region. Ukrainian armed forces began a surprise offensive in Russia's Kursk region on Sunday local time in an apparent attempt to regain the initiative before Donald Trump's return to the White House. And these are today's headlines. It's time to check in with Sue this morning for Busan Updates. Let's say hi first. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you had a good weekend.
Yes, I did.
Good. So, hey, you did share with our listeners recently that you just kind of started living on your own recently, or at least it's in 2024. So you're already living on your own. And how is it? Do you enjoy living on your own?
At first, I felt so lonely, and I thought, I would never get used to this peaceful state, very
peaceful,
quiet environment. But then I slowly got used to it.
And so you're okay with it?
Yes.
But it was by choice, was it not, though, to go out on your own, or no? They kicked you out?
It was at the same time, they kicked me out, and I wanted to get out on my own as well. Yeah, so it was both.
Well, some of us are very jealous, so we're going to jump to our first update. Okay. Busan National University Hospital is facing critical staff shortage in the hematology and oncology department. That's the 혈액 종양내과. So tell us about this.
Yes, this department plays a vital role in the treatment of critically ill patients who require chemotherapy and advanced care. There were 5 people working in the department, but 2 of them resigned on January staffers and one professor is currently on medical leave. This shortage is due to the mass resignation of residents in the internal medicine department. The internal medicine professors collectively managed on-call duties, and this system has been discontinued due to the lack of staff. If patients' conditions deteriorate, the department operates an alert system which allows immediate contact with the professors. As a result of current circumstances, the remaining medical staff, especially professors, have been facing overwhelming workloads.
Right.
And patients with solid tumors such as stomach cancer, lung, liver, and colon cancer are being referred to nearby hospitals for care. The remaining two professors are concentrating on blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma. And PNU Hospital has been actively trying to fill the vacant positions in its hematology and oncology department. However, these efforts have not been successful. Recently, the hospital has expanded its recruitment efforts by announcing a job posting for clinical professors.
Yes. Once again, of urgent concern, especially as this is kind of the representative university hospital in our area. Now we're going to move on and talk about news regarding people who have taken the CSAT or 수능, and also, I guess, the 수생들, students who have taken the exam more than once. Take heed of the high-price cosmetic procedures or even vision correction treatments. So what's going on?
Yes, Korea Consumer Agency 한국소비자원 has reported an increase in consumer complaints from exam takers every year, particularly after the college entrance exam. For example, a student received an estimation of 2.8 million won for 5 skin treatments. Thinking the cost was too excessive, this person visited a regular clinic and found out that a single treatment cost only 50,000 won. Another instance includes a student who was advised to have lens insertion surgery, costing around 5 million won. After consulting a different eye clinic, she was told that LASIK, which is a popular eye surgery for refractive vision problems, would be sufficient to correct her vision, and this would only cost 2 to 3 million won. Like this, some businesses have been found to aggressively promote high-priced beauty treatments or vision correction procedures using discounts and promotions targeted at these students. So Korea Consumer Agency has urged caution to carefully review contracts and avoid suspicious marketing tactics to avoid falling victims.
Indeed. This is like the time of year. There's a lot of discounts and promotions for people who have that ticket, right? If you took the 수능. So please be aware of this. All right, next up, Busan City is implementing the winter season livelihood stabilization comprehensive plan to ensure that all citizens can have a warm and safe winter. So can you explain?
Through this plan, the city will provide emergency welfare support to households identified as being in crisis. For a single-person household who is eligible for the support, will receive living, housing, fuel, and medical expenses. For vulnerable groups such as the homeless and residents in poor housing, emergency shelter and distribution of heating supplies will be provided as part of a continuous protection system during cold periods. Busan City is also strengthening its disaster response systems for winter natural disasters such as heavy snow, cold waves, and wildfires. Additionally, the city will focus on preemptive safety inspections to prevent fires and safety accidents to ensure citizen safety during the winter.
What about for public health? What is the city doing?
And to manage public health, the city is focusing on preventing cold-related illnesses and infectious diseases among vulnerable groups. For those at higher health risk, 16 dedicated health management teams consisting of 133 members and 1,223 health guardians are actively placed in various regions. Winter items such as comforters and scarves will be provided to lower-income households, and thermal curtains will be installed to block the cold for them.
Well, hopefully this will help people once again who are especially vulnerable during this season. All right, lastly, the city has prepared a variety of educational programs for families and their kids, students, during the winter break season.
Busan National Science Museum has organized science experience programs to enhance scientific inquiry and creativity for families and students during the winter break. The exhibition called 곰곰이와 찬찬이 encourages visitors to think about and appreciate the things around us that are often overlooked because they're too small or always there by our side. It is held until March 9th. This exhibition invites participants to reflect on the value of these everyday objects. It is hosted at the small exhibition hall and is free to attend. And also the Eco Drone World, 에코가 그린 세상 exhibition offers an advanced media show tailored to children's perspectives with future energy as its theme. Additionally, Busan Modern and Contemporary History Museum will run the 따뜻한 뮤캉스 부산항 척척박사. It's a long title. Warm Museumcation Port of Busan opening. It's a winter vacation program for elementary school students in grades 3 to 6 from January 14th to 19th. Students will visit the permanent exhibition hall, listen to guides, and experience activities like the historical background of Joseon Dynasty during the port opening period and take part in the civil service exam process. So in this activity, children will take the civil service exam to become an official at the Busan Port Supervisory Office. And this program will help them understand the changes in Busan during the opening period.
I see. So for those of you who are interested in this program, you can visit the website of the Busan Modern and Contemporary History Museum and apply. And I hear that the deadline is till this Friday, the 10th. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for all the Busan updates, Sue. We'll check in with you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right, everybody. This was Sue once again. I'll be back with your traffic and weather. It is now 7:16. Here's your traffic report. There is a broken down cargo truck on the Namhae Expressway, lane number 2, going towards Kimhae, right at the entrance of the Seoul Busan Nakdonggang Bridge. There was backup because of this. Also, congestion on the Dongso overpass from Hwangyang Ramp to the old Kaegum Toll Gate. It's also looking slow on Kayadero from the Saseong-gu District Office, so please be aware of these areas. Currently, it is 4 degrees Celsius here in Sandam under clear skies. The daytime high will go up to 10 degrees. Although with a wind chill factor, it might feel colder than that. Across the nation, rain or snow is forecast across much of the country, especially in the mountainous regions. Parts of Gyeonggi, Gangwon, and Jeju are expected to see up to 5 centimeters of snow. Bad fine dust levels forecast throughout the country, though. And this was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for News Digest. Let's say hi to Haley first. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yay. So today we're talking about something that I so want to do. Live by myself at this age and area of my life, yes. But have you done it?
I have not, actually. I've lived without my parents, but I've always had roommates. I've always had roommates.
Yes.
In college, I had one roommate, and then post-college, we lived in a house with 5 girls. So it was a hair fest.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't need, so gross, but we didn't need rugs.
Right.
Do I want to live by myself? Theoretically, yes. But practically, with my lifestyle, laziness, lack of, cleanliness. Because
Lack
I
of
know.
cleaning skills.
Yeah, that's true. I do
She
shower.
showers every day.
I shower every day.
Yes.
I just don't, Well, because I think I'm old enough that I know it takes you need an adult in the household. And it takes a lot of work to be that adult. Like your home does not clean itself.
That's true.
Yeah.
Even if you have one of those like robot vacuums,
Right.
right?
And so, I mean, someone has to empty the
trash.
The robot, I believe, does not empty itself or something.
Right.
Yeah, somebody has to take the trash out. And and I know enough about myself that I do not want to be the person who keeps the house clean. But if you live by yourself, it's so much work.
So much work. And
Yeah.
like, so for you, you're saying like to be able to live on your own, one skill would be how to clean.
Oh, for sure. For
Survival.
sure. So yeah, like I think emotionally being by myself and not feeling too alone,
Sure.
I can definitely do that. But yeah, doing all the chores and dividing up your time to do all the chores and not be exhausted. Can I do that? I mean, I could, but I wouldn't be here. I'd be cleaning right now.
Well, what about like in emergency situations? Because we've had like real life, we've heard of real stories where people get locked in their bathroom or even on the balcony without their phone and they're like locked out.
Right. Well, my phone is an extension of my right hand because I'm a
right,
lefty.
always?
So I'm I'm like, yeah. And then, yeah.
I've never
right?
thought about that. So if you're a lefty, you hold your phone with your
my right hand. Yeah.
Why have I never thought of that?
Right. I'm a lefty. Yeah. This hand needs to be free for other things. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes. All right. So, like, we're going to dive into our first bit of news. The top story right now is the pending arrest of President Yoon and the 6-hour standoff between the CIO and the presidential security. So
Right. I mean, Friday was a doozy. I mean,
Yes.
throughout our broadcast, that's when it began and pretty much until the end of the day.
Yes.
So police officers were dispatched to assist the CIO, the Corruption Investigative Office, for high-ranking officials, but they were met with presidential office and even some in the Army's Capital Defense Command. Apparently, despite all the reinforcements, the number of reinforcements on the president's side overwhelmingly outnumber the CIO. So the presidential security, they cited the Security Act for refusing to cooperate, leading to this standoff that lasted for about 5.5 hours. So the CIO officials didn't even actually get to see President Yoon Suk-yeol in person. Interestingly, no one was arrested for obstruction of justice despite this long standoff, also apparently in fear of physical altercations. And there has been criticism that the CIO, this relatively new law enforcement agency, may have not been prepared for such a big operation, and this may speak to their lack of experience or inexperience.
Right. It is a relatively new agency once again. And then there is now this significant tension between the CIO and the presidential security team.
Right. So the CIO has sent a second official letter asking for the presidential security's cooperation, and that letter was sent to the acting president, Choi Sang-mok.
Okay.
But it seems that no one in the top ranks of the presidential office or the cabinet, no one wants to basically touch this issue. So Che has not responded to either of the two letters sent to him. One sent on January 1st, the other one just a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And also the presidential chief of staff, Chung Jin-seok, said that he himself does not have the authority to give orders to the presidential security. In the meantime, the police's special investigation team, they summoned the head of the presidential security to come in for questioning for obstruction of justice charges. And they've done this for 2 times. So they sent Park Jong-jun a summons for questioning on Saturday. He did not comply, and they will send the second summons actually tomorrow.
I see.
Park and his deputy Kim Sung-hoon, they face aggravated obstruction of justice charges, which is 특수 공무 집행 방해 in Korean, for blocking the execution of the arrest warrant. But the thing is, judging from everything that's happened, whether the CIO does succeed in executing this warrant really depends on how the presidential office and how presidential security, rather, it acts, and that apparently depends on whether the acting president decides to step in.
Yes, indeed. And what happens though if the CIO does not execute this warrant?
Right. So there are 3 possibilities.
Okay.
One, by the way, they may try to do this again today, and today is the last day for this particular warrant. If this does not go through, they may ask for another. They may request for another warrant. But then if that falls through, two other possibilities, the CIO could file for an arrest warrant. And we have been referring to this as the arrest warrant, but we do need to distinguish the two under Korean law.
Okay.
So there are two types of arrest warrants in Korean law. One is called 체포영장, which is closer to a detention warrant versus an arrest warrant, 구속영장. The one that they're trying to execute right now is 체포, the detention warrant.
Yes.
So that is, by the way, only effective for 48 hours, and the suspect in question is inside the police precinct or police station for questioning. An arrest warrant, that means physical detention, and that period is longer until the trial in question would end.
Yes.
So the CIO could file for an arrest warrant, 구속영장. But then once again, will the presidential security let the CIO officials or the police into the presidential residence to let them physically take Yoon? Another question to be had.
Yes.
And then the final scenario for the CIO is to basically wrap up its end of the investigation and pass it on to the prosecution. That is because the CIO only has the rights to investigate. It actually cannot press charges. But once again, then this would actually really touch the very foundation of the organization itself and raise into questions whether it is equipped or effective in dealing with these matters.
Ah, yes, indeed. So those are the three scenarios that could play out if they're not able to execute this first warrant. All right, we're going to move our attention now to the Jeju air crash investigation. The authorities retrieved the engine of the crashed plane, and this is expected to provide some clues as they begin the investigation in earnest.
Right. So the on-site search for the remains of the deceased into the Jeju air crash that has ended, and now the investigation starts in earnest. So first, the two engines that were buried in the dirt in the crash, the investigators actually excavated this, raised it from the ground on Friday. And in the footage from the scene, you can see the wreckage, the carnage of the crash, major dents with wires sticking out. It was very much filled with dirt. And this is suspected to be the engine that is known to have suffered the bird strike that was buried in the ground. Also, once again, the remains of all victims have been collected, but on-site search to a smaller extent will continue for their belongings. And the families have begun their funeral proceedings.
Yes, yes. And, you know, this concrete mound for the localizer, this has been in the news quite a bit. Apparently is in other airports across the country as well, though.
Right. So this accident, it really is raising safety alerts for especially smaller airports. Because here's the thing about airports that are smaller, they therefore have shorter runways.
Yes.
Keep in mind, they are they're all in accordance with international standards. However, we are talking about kind of that extra space for overruns in case of emergencies, as we have seen in Muan. So such structures for these concrete mounds for the localizers say apparently also exist in Yeosu, Gwangju, and the Pohang Gyeongju airports. And on top of that, most airports, they are built around or even on bird habitats. Despite this, there's actually not a single airport in South Korea that has bird detection radars. And only 3 larger airports, Gimpo, Gimhae, and Jeju, have infrared thermal imaging or 열화상 감지 cameras to detect these birds.
Right. And well, that's that. And then there's also the criticism that the country and the local governments may have, I guess, built more airports than they can actually handle.
Right, or that are maybe needed.
Yes.
So according to the Land Infrastructure and Transport Ministry and local governments, there are 15 airports total in South Korea. But 7 of them have flights that go in and out of the airports in the single digits per day range. So they're not very high in demand, let's just say.
Yes.
Muan is one case of such an airport, although apparently, despite the lack of commercial or cargo airports, this was a really busy airport because there are trainings that are conducted there, which means while it's not getting a lot of money, the air traffic control is quite busy. So the thing is, the lack of commercial flights, that leads to, once again, the money issue, business difficulties, because airports need an astronomical amount of money to run.
Yes.
And there are suspicions that the lack of financial resources may have caused some safety lapses. However, despite this, calls for more airports do continue. And some pundits say that airports become kind of political tools, especially during a campaign season.
Sure.
And at this time, there are 8 airports that are in the works by the central government. And it is a sensitive issue here in Busan because we also have an airport that's underway.
Yes.
But experts warn that building these large infrastructures, what's called social overhead capital, like airports, based on political logic, and that could not only distort the market, but also puts passenger safety at risk.
Indeed. So that is something that they're really going to have to take a hard look at. I'm talking about the relevant authorities. All right, moving on. It is cold and flu season, and the numbers are actually astonishingly high.
Right. So as I'm getting a dry throat, but it's only a dry throat,
Yes.
or knock on wood, really. But we are seeing the biggest bout of flu, 독감 cases we've seen in 8 years. So according to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the KDCA, for the final week of 2024, they reported that of those who visited the 300 medical institutions nationwide that are used for sampling, 73.9 out of 1,000 patients had suspected flu symptoms. This is actually a 136% increase in the span of 1 week,
Yes.
and also the highest figures we're seeing since 2016. So the authorities also, they're seeing increases across all ages, but this was particularly high for teenagers, schools, of course, kids in large numbers and close vicinity.
Yes.
Also, the outbreak rate was 151 out of 1,000 patients in the 13 to 18 group, which was apparently 17 times the national average.
Wow.
Most of the strands are type A, A형 독감. So the KDCA urged those in high-risk groups to get vaccinated, and you can even right now, because the flu season, it does extend until pretty much early spring.
Yes.
So who are we talking about in terms of these high-risk groups? Children between the ages of 6 months and 13 years, expectant mothers, and seniors 65 or older. Actually, your flu vaccines are free and available until April 30th.
Right. So if you are eligible or if your family members are, please make sure
Right.
you get vaccinated. Thank you for all the news. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right. It's time for our first song break. So here it is. This is Pete by HOT as requested by Michael.
모일 때 서로에 대한 믿음을 키워 나갈 때 싸울 일도 없어 기분 나쁠 일도 없어 서로 찡그리며 다툴 필요 전혀 없어 우리가 꿈꾸는 무슨 빛이 저기 있어 아름다운 세상이 바로 저기 보여 우린 여기 서서 이렇게 말하고 있어 우리 H.O.T. Let's party 그리고 하늘을 봐요 우리가 함께 만든 세상을 하늘에 그려봐요 눈이 부시죠 너무나 아름답죠 마주 잡은 두 손으로 우리 모두 함께 만들어가요
Welcome back. You know, I just saw a message from Michael. Is this true? H.O.T. I never really understood what it stood for. Does it really stand for high five of teenager? 정말이에요? 그 뜻이에요? 약자가? The meaning. I never really thought about it, but if it is, so like indicative of like the happy-go-lucky feeling of some of their songs and kind of like, is it from the 90s? I want to say. All right, you know, for a text topic, we're talking about living alone. Have you ever lived by yourself? Is this something that you would want to do? And I think this is so important. What skills do you think are necessary for someone to live on their own? 자, 가족이나 룸메이트 없이 나 홀로 살아본 적 있다. 아니면 한 번이라도 혼자 살고 싶다. versus 아니다. 나는 혼자서 못 살아요 하는 분들도 꽤 있을 것 같아요. 혼자 살기 위해 필요한 스킬이나 성향은 뭐가 필요할까요? Looking at, oh, by the way, I got responses saying, yes, that's what it means. High five of teenager. I learned something new from you waivers every day. So thank you for that. Now, I will not forget what HOT stands for. Looking to some of your responses, it's kind of mixed. I thought everybody would want to live on their own, or maybe a lot of people have that experience, but apparently not so. Like, for example, Benny says, I've never done it, and also I want to do more chores and cook also, so be responsible to pay bills. That's really important. When you're living on your own, you don't want to be like asking for a handout from your parents or your guardians, right? You want to be able to be self-sufficient economically. So that is very important. And Tommy mentioning that there's a lot of snow again in the area he lives in, Suwon. By the way, real short, I just got back from a mini excursion with my family in the Gangwon area. We barely made it down yesterday. It was snowing so much. Having never really driven in snow without like snow chains, aside from going skiing like once in a while, it was really, really hairy out there yesterday. Like, so if you're in those areas listening to us, I hope you're doing well. It was like snowing so much yesterday. Also, Leslie says, I have never lived by myself beyond 3 days when my spouse was at a conference. Short periods of time are fine, but I don't think I could be happy living by myself for more than a couple of weeks. Leslie, that's why I said I just want to do it for 1 month. I'm okay with a 1 month. I'll get to more of your messages. And by the way, Young, we were worried about you. I'm so happy Young texted in today. So Young says, good morning. I wish you a great 2025 and may be a year full of personal and professional achievements. Of course, with good health. Well, I'm just glad that you are doing well and are alive. We were kind of getting worried because we hadn't seen you in a while. Welcome back. And here is Kat's pick for this Monday morning. For today's Kat's pick, I want to talk about this term, Quad-demic. You've all heard of epidemic, pandemic, but Quad-demic. What is this all about? Let's listen to the clip from Good Morning America.
So this term quad-demic, it refers to the convergence of high levels of, just like you said, flu, COVID, RSV, and this norovirus. And there are multiple factors at play here, different social, environmental, biologic factors that are causing these numbers that, in New York, it's not unprecedented to see high levels of viral syndromes, especially during the winter when there's indoor crowding, increased travel, lots of different gatherings. But there are other factors at play here, such as viral evolution, new strains that emerge, lots of different things.
Doctor, how do we know what we have? Because so many of these symptoms can be so similar.
So that's completely true. So fever, chills, headache, body aches, fatigue, things like that are pretty much across the board with different viral syndromes. Norovirus is a little bit different on the other hand. That presents primarily with GI symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, aches, things like that. But that's not necessarily unique to norovirus. You can have some overlap with the flu. So based on symptoms alone, it's not always entirely possible to tell which viral syndrome you have. Pretty much across the board, the way we care for these viral syndromes is what we call conservative management and supportive care. So getting enough rest, staying adequately hydrated, taking over-the-counter medications, fever relievers, pain reducers, acetaminophen and ibuprofen, things like that. Kind of letting the virus run its course. The good news is that these symptoms pretty much tend to resolve themselves spontaneously. But when you're experiencing things like shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, if you're unable to walk or care for yourself, and if you're unable to eat or tolerate anything by mouth, and you're not able to drink water, that's a pretty good time to go to the emergency department for an evaluation.
So you mentioned some of the remedies there, but what about prevention?
So prevention is key. One thing that's very important if you haven't gotten your flu vaccine or any other vaccines you might be eligible for, it is not too late. So reach out to your healthcare provider to see which vaccines you can be eligible for. Hand washing is huge, especially with this norovirus. So hand sanitizer may not be 100% effective for norovirus. So washing your hands at least for
key to remember
20 seconds. Yes, because a lot of these viruses can live on surfaces. So washing your hands adequately, not touching your face, your nose, your mouth, things like that are huge for prevention.
So as you heard in that clip, the norovirus, if you use the hand sanitizers, it might not be enough. So you really need to wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. And I know one of our listeners, and I'm sure many of you are not feeling well. So for all of you not feeling well, please get well soon. And this was Kat's Pick for Monday.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for Showbiz Buzz. We have Michael in the studio.
Good morning. Good morning.
And by the way, thank you for not making that creaking sound. The door, people are mentioning, how come when you enter, 그 문소리가 안 난다고.
그래요?
좋은데요. 혜리 씨만 들어올 때 그 소리가 나요.
really?
Yeah, it's so weird.
I have no idea.
Right.
I don't know what I did.
Yeah. Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
감사합니다.
And our tech topic today. It's all about living by yourself. So are you, I think you said you live with your parents, right?
Yeah, I live alone, yes.
And do you enjoy it?
Yes, it's
good.
always nice to live away from your parents.
I'm so jealous. I've never lived a day away from my parents or without a roommate or without, my roommate now. college roommate and my life roommate now. So what life skills do you think are really important
Oh, yeah.
living on your own?
So I've been living alone for, I think, around 7 to 8 years now. And it's all about how to make yourself, I guess, frugal, or how should I say, like being economical when it comes to spending.
Yes.
And I think the biggest way to do that is to cut back on food. And being able to cook. I think that's most important.
Oh, I think that's important.
Yeah,
too.
because nowadays I really depend too much on delivery. And that costs a lot, right?
It adds up.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's expensive. The food is expensive when you deliver.
The delivery
but-
fees. Ooh.
Yeah, but
Yes.
if you're able to cook, you can save a lot of money. I mean, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
so-
Well, to all of you who have thought about it, have done it, yes, a little jealous, and yeah, you need those life skills.
Yeah, I miss my parents sometimes because
Yes.
like they used to be great cooks. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying that they cook all the time, but
Yes.
they used to
Well-
make great food. I miss that.
They're still around, right?
Yeah, they're still around.
Because when
No,
you were
no,
saying
no.
it, it's like,
Everybody's
"Oh, I miss their
everybody's
cooking,"
alive
like they're
and happy.
gone.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's jump into our first bit of news. What's the story about?
There is this huge craze of Squid Game these days. And
Yes.
season 2 is now up in the air and everybody's watching it. Global streaming giant Netflix reached a record number of app users in Korea following the release of Squid Game Season 2. Market tracker WiseApp Retail Goods said on Friday.
Yes.
So in the fourth week of December 2024, so that's just a week ago, the Netflix app boasted 9.75 million users, surpassing the former record of 9.12 million set in the first week of March 2023. This also represents an increase of 1.87 million from the previous week's user count of 7.88 million. So that's a lot of people, using this Netflix app to watch Squid Game Season 2. So WiseApp, the research group, said in a press release on Friday that the number of Netflix app users is estimated to have peaked after the debut of Squid Game Season 2. And, as the numbers show, the series has shown big success since its release on December 26th, 2024, quickly reaching number 1 on Netflix in all 93 countries where the streaming platform is available upon its release.
I think we kind of take it for granted. But that's kind of amazing for any show, number 1 in 93 countries.
Everybody was actually, very concerned about how people will accept the newest season, right?
Yes.
But, regardless of the acceptance or the how people find it or how people like it, it's switching, it's replacing, it's breaking new records. And I think that means a lot, And another thing that Squid Game Season 2 has sparked the global craze is also for the traditional Korean games as well, So the series ignited global fascination with traditional Korean games, particularly the childhood pastime of 공기, which is, a variation of jacks.
Right.
I remember playing 공기 when I was young, really, really young, back in, 초등학교. I mean, I feel young enough to not have gone to 국민학교, but you know what I mean?
Are we outing certain people?
No. 국민학교 is a great place. I mean, 초등학교 as well. But anyways, TMI. Anyways, so since its debut on December 26, 2024, the new series, the new second season for Squid Games has captivated audiences worldwide, logging nearly 500 million viewing hours in its first week and turning 공기 into a trending search term. So social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok are flooded with videos of fans attempting 공기, often with creative twists. So one of the YouTubers replicated the game using dice.
Okay.
And some people use 3D printers to actually craft the original 공기 stones that was inspired by, the Squid Game Season 2. And the game's resurgence is also rekindling nostalgic pride among Korean diaspora communities. Posts from second-generation Korean Americans highlight their parents demonstrating 공기 skills honed during their childhoods. And the series also introduced viewers to unique twists on familiar games like rock, paper, scissors.
그거 뭐 하나 빼기?
Yeah, 하나 빼기.
Yes.
Enhanced with the -1 rule.
Right.
Yeah, which is, I didn't know this was uniquely Korean. I mean, don't they do it in the States or other countries as well?
I don't remember learning that. The rock, paper, scissors, yes.
Yes.
But the 하나 빼기 I learned in Korea from my cousins like
Really?
during summer vacation.
That's interesting.
And then the 공기 thing is so different. The American jacks, there's like a rubber ball that you bounce. And then the jacks are of I forgot what material. I'm thinking plastic or some sort of metallic something. But it's very different.
So
The jacks-
it's more complicated than
To me, the American version is more difficult because you got to bounce a little red. Back in the day, it was red. Like this rubber ball, you got to bounce it and
Interesting.
then do it, right? So it's
Yeah, I
quite
think
different.
I've seen someone play it, but do it, but like I still haven't figured out how it actually works. The American jacks.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, I mean, so 공기, I think to me it's very simple game, right? But another unexpected hit is the Korean nursery rhyme. Round and Round or 둥글게 둥글게. I think this is my favorite. 둥글게 둥글게 예 둥글게 둥글게 예 랄랄랄랄랄랄 춤을 춥시다. I don't know the lyrics
You don't
in between.
know the lyrics?
I forgot. It's been such a while. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, I did see it on. I did see them play it on season 2, but I forgot. I still forgot.
Yes.
But it's if it's being featured prominently in the show,
Right.
And social media users have uploaded dance routines and parody videos. One of the social media users posted a clip that garnered over 5 million views.
Wow.
Just by doing 둥글게 둥글게, and the song's catchy tune has left fans worldwide humming along. So, after the global success of Squid Game in 2021, which popularized games like Red Light, Green Light, which was a major, global craze.
Yes.
And 달고나 candy, remember that?
Everybody was like, "What
Yeah.
is this? This sweet goodness."
Yeah.
Yes.
So the second season continues to celebrate Korean culture on an international stage. And with millions engaging in these traditional games, Squid Game Season 2 has cemented its role as both an entertainment juggernaut and a cultural ambassador.
We have so many people. They're waggling about the different memories that they
Yeah,
have.
I mean, it's nostalgia for a lot of Koreans.
Right.
And not just Koreans, too. I mean, those who know Korean culture, they can all appreciate these games as, like those as one of those good memories back in childhood.
We have one message 성이름님 who says this. 하나 빼기 그건 거짓말 아니고 1,000번 넘게 해준 적 있어요. 딸 독감 걸려서 심심할 때 가위바위보 묵찌빠 하나 빼기 무한 반복. So she says that they did it over like a
재밌어.
1,000
시간 가는 줄
times.
몰라. You don't know. Like, it's so fun sometimes. Like, you remember?
Unless you get nervous, like the character, and you do two of the.
Oh, yeah. That's the same thing. That happens a lot.
Right.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
get
but
nervous.
sometimes that's also strategy, right? I mean,
Yes.
like, and it's such a simple game, but also very fun and strategic. And, sometimes back into those days, before phones came out, before televisions were like, widely available, you remember just playing these games outside at noritas and playgrounds and stuff, it's good old days.
Okay, so we got to move on because we have time for just one short story.
All right.
And I have a public service announcement that I have to read.
All right. So Disney's Aladdin
Yes.
is now in South Korea as a musical, right? And it topped South Korea's musical box office in 2024.
It did, okay.
Yes. So the musical emerged as the highest grossing production in South Korea in 2024, according to preliminary data from the Korea Performing Arts Box Office Information System, or KOPIS. The production, based on Disney's animated classic, very famous and popular, captivated audiences following its November debut and maintained high ticket sales into early 2025. The musical was directed by Broadway veterans and featured a star-studded cast including Kim Jun-soo, Seok-young-soo, and Park Kang-hyun. And Aladdin sold out most of its available seats through March and is scheduled to run in Seoul until June. So the production success reflects a strong appeal to both domestic and international audiences. So as South Korea's musical market continues to grow, the focus remains on balancing the appeal of internationally licensed hits with fostering original domestic productions, or 창작 뮤지컬, right?
Yes.
Which is very important to me as well, personally. With Aladdin leading the charge in 2024, the stage is set for a more dynamic 2025 as both new and returning productions seek audience attention.
Well, we look forward to more of these productions here in Korea. So thank you
Yes.
for all the Showbiz Buzz. We'll check in with you next week, Michael.
Thank you.
All right. And so here is a public service announcement for you. The Korean National Police Agency has issued this public service announcement at 7:35 a.m. on January 6, 2025 nationwide. Regarding the Jeju airplane crash, the Korea National Police Service, the Korean National Police Agency, is conducting a thorough investigation into defamatory posts and videos that harm the honor of the victims and their families. Spreading false rumors or posting defamatory content and videos indiscriminately is a serious crime. Please refrain from actions that could further hurt the bereaved families. This was a public service announcement from the Korean National Police Agency. And we're going to end it on that note for hour number 1. Very short ending here. We have Hug by 동방신기. I'll be back at 8.
되고 싶어. Oh baby 더 따스히 포근한 내 품에 감싸고 재우고 싶어 아주 작은 뒤척임도 너의 조그만 속삭임에 난 꿈속의 괴물도 이겨내버릴 텐데 내가 없는 너의 하루 어떻게 흘러가는 건지 나를 얼마나 사랑하는지 난 너무나 궁금한데 너의 작은 서랍 속에 일기장이 되고 싶어 알 수 없는 너의 그 비밀
Your Bridge to the World. BEFM 부산영어방송.
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳
지금 운전 중이신가요? 어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전 기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참! 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
These are the guidelines for action for people in the event of an apartment building fire. First, if evacuation is possible in the event of a fire in your home, move to a safe place in a low posture by using stairs. And if evacuation is difficult, move to an evacuation space or block the door gap and call 119 for rescue. Second, if a fire breaks out in another home and no flames or smoke enters your home, wait inside the home, call 119, and act according to the announcement. Third, if flames and smoke come into your home in the event of a fire in another home, check to see if evacuation is possible and then evacuate or request rescue. This was brought to you by the Ministry of the Interior and Safety and the National Fire Agency.
지금 방송 광고라는 부메랑을 던져보세요. 소비자를 향해 정확히 날아가는 광고. 힘차게 돌아가는 경제. 부메랑처럼 다시 기업의 이익으로 되돌아오니까요. 방송 광고, 경제에 큰 힘이 됩니다. 부산 방송광고발전협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It is now 8 o'clock and this is News Highlights. Court dismisses Yoon's objections to warrant execution. The Seoul Western District Court yesterday dismissed the injunction filed by President Yoon Suk-yeol that sought to invalidate the court's warrant for his detention in a search of the presidential residence. The presidential security on Friday blocked the authorities' attempt to execute the warrant, causing a 6-hour standoff that ended with the law enforcement backing down. In the meantime, Yoon's lawyer said he will file a complaint with the prosecution requesting an investigation against officials in charge of executing the warrant for obstruction of justice and illegal entry into secure facilities. Search ends at Jeju Air crash site. Authorities concluded a week-long search operation at the Jeju Air plane crash site at MON International Airport yesterday, with an investigation into the cause of the accident to begin in full. All 179 bodies have been recovered, and most of them returned to their families. Local authorities in Gwangju and Cheonnam have extended cremation hours to help facilitate the process. A total of over 280,000 people have visited the memorial sites set up across the country until the end of the national mourning period. Some regions have decided to keep the altars open to allow for people to continue paying respects. Rallies for and against Yoon's impeachment held over the weekend. Tens of thousands of people gathered near the presidential residence over the weekend to rally for or against the detention of President Yoon Suk-yeol. Parliamentary parties also clashed over the Corruption Investigative Office, or CIO's attempt to detain Yoon. The ruling People Power Party is pushing for a revote on the impeachment bill, with the opposition urging for a swift execution of the warrant. The CIO is expected to attempt to detain Yoon again today, the last day of the warrant. Heavy snow blankets capital and Gangwon regions. Multiple accidents were reported in Seoul as heavy snow fell across the wider Seoul area and eastern Gangwon province yesterday. The Korea Meteorological Administration, or KMA, had forecast up to 8 centimeters of snow in Seoul as much as 10 centimeters in Gyeonggi and Gangwon provinces. The Ministry of the Interior and Safety activated the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters at level 1 and raised the crisis alert to caution. It has now come down to the attention level. Ukraine launches surprise operation in Kursk region. Ukrainian armed forces began a surprise offensive in Russia's Kursk region on Sunday local time in an apparent attempt to regain the initiative on the battlefield before Donald Trump's imminent return to the White House. Ukraine's general staff said 42 combat clashes took place on Sunday in the Kursk area, with 12 continuing. In the meantime, President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that Russians have lost up to a battalion of infantry North Korean troops in the Kursk region. And this was News Highlights. It's time for Wagga Wagga. Haley's back.
I'm back.
Yes, yes. And I want to read this message from Young before we get started, if you don't mind. We were talking, obviously, about living alone, living by yourself. And he says, by the way, we were wondering where he was. He was in Brazil.
Ooh.
But he's arrived back in Korea all tanned. And he said, thanks for asking. Living alone, I'm already quite used to it. The thing you need for this would be the ability to talk to yourself. I always talk to myself.
Me too. Sorry, but I'm glad. I'm sorry. Because
We're
sometimes.
talking about Young.
Okay.
Oh, chill. Okay. So this is Young's message. I always talk to myself, and this became easier with ChatGPT. I talk every day with ChatGPT, and I even gave it a nickname, 점순이, because when you call it, a big dot appears. That's what he says. And I know someone personally, she has named her ChatGPT Chemini.
I like Che. Oh, that's cute.
Do you guys name your...
I just talk to myself, like self, just
self.
Yeah, I just
you don't need
to the
ChatGPT.
to the air, you know. But
why are we not surprised?
I know, but this should not surprise us. But can I throw a tidbit of information that was useless until now? It's relevant. You know the film Her?
Yes.
그녀. The year that it's set in is 2025. So we are there. This
Scarlett
is
Johansson,
it. Yes.
The voice. Oh, interesting. All right, and we have another message. You need to talk to that door to stop making noises, is what Tommy says. Talk to the door.
Maybe I've been yelling at it, but maybe I need to talk to it nicely with a please and a thank you. And
People are so happy. Wagga Wagga is back.
It is.
We're back. Yes. All right. But not such a great happy story. We're going to begin with this one. There was an accident last week where an elderly driver with Alzheimer's crashed his car into a Seoul area traditional market.
Right. So we didn't really get to report on this story because of what was happening last week and the week before. But on the final day of 2024, there was an accident where a 74-year-old driver, he not only crashed, but basically drove his car through a traditional market in Mokdong area in Seoul, killing 1 and injuring 13.
Right.
And it turns out that the driver was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in November of 2023. So he's been diagnosed for about a year, and he was on medication for 3 months in the initial phases after diagnosis, but has been off it or off any treatment or medication since then. So in the past 3 years, he has a history of 2 other accidents, although there were no casualties reported with those 2.
Ah, really? So I think this tragedy, it speaks to the larger issue of drivers with issues like Alzheimer's or dementia.
Right, because generally speaking, of course, every single individual case is different, but once again, generally.
Yes.
Alzheimer's and dementia patients, they do see a decline in cognitive ability, judgment making, and even sensory ability, so sight and auditory.
Right.
So experts say that when you compare drivers with Alzheimer's versus without Alzheimer's in the same age group, the risk of accidents with drivers with Alzheimer's, they rise by about 2 to 5 times higher.
Oh.
So it's been reported, though, that 1 in every 5 Alzheimer's patients, they do still drive. So under the Road and Traffic Act, here's where the law lies on it. Alzheimer's is a cause that can get one's driver's license revoked or canceled.
Okay.
However, because Alzheimer's isn't just one symptom. It is a range of symptoms, a range of degrees, extent of symptoms. So the authorities make a ruling in consideration of not only the disease itself, but the driver's individual ability. But this is where also another safety blind spot comes in, because unless the driver notifies the authorities that, hey, I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or I have dementia, they don't go through the additional driving test, which is once again why, going back to this particular Mokdong accident, that driver was able to keep his driver's license.
Yes.
So with super aging, and we are, as of last year, officially a super age society, there are apparently 1 million Alzheimer's patients in South Korea, and that figure is expected to reach 3 million come 2050. So experts call for measures like limiting driving, but then also, limiting driving in certain cases can lead to their limited mobility or access to certain resources. So with any issues that concern aging, it is one that we need to take a broader lens to.
And people often get this, it can be confusing, but Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. So dementia is this umbrella term.
Right.
And there are different symptoms, once again, for everybody. So I don't know, we do need to work on this on a bigger scale, of course. Let's move on and talk about this. KBS drama is facing a police investigation for damaging a World Heritage Site.
Right. So it's ironic that it's a historical drama and they've put some nails in a World Heritage Site.
Literally.
Yeah. So Gyeongbuk Police received a complaint regarding the camera crew with KBS drama damaging the 병산서원. It's a Confucian Academy in Andong. So Andong City also confirmed that the camera team they rented out, or they leased this structure 만대루 for their filming, hammered nails into 5 spots on the structure's wooden pillars, and they left holes behind. So the individual who filed that particular complaint alleges that this is in violation of the law on conservation and usage of cultural heritage.
Yes.
Well, the broadcasting company, they have apologized and said that they'll discuss procedures for repairs with the city. However, the same company, which is also the public broadcaster, back in the early 2000s was under fire for basically doing the exact same thing. They hammered these huge nails into the 문경세제 Heritage Site, which was kind of like a fort in the middle of the mountains. And back then also pledged to pay for repairs, but vowed prevention measures.
Which apparently didn't trickle down.
Or had a 2-decade expiration period.
So, of course, we love our dramas, but we want to also protect World Heritage
We also
sites.
love World Heritage Sites.
Yes. All right, we're going to go to the Jeju Air tragedy for our next couple of stories. The parent company of the airline, Aegeon Group, is under fire for one of their hotels holding a rather festive end-of-the-year celebration.
Right. So it's a hotel that's owned by Aegeon Group, but I think this distinction is important, not directly run by them.
Okay.
But they had an internal event for its employees. So basically their end-of-the-year party. And it turns out it was a party, a rather festive one, including a raffle. And when is important because this was in the middle of the mourning period, 2 days after the accident. And let's just say that basically everyone else, almost the entire country, we were in mourning. A lot of people, companies, organizations cancel their end of the year events. Well, the hotel in question is the Novotel ambassador in Suwon. Apparently had this event despite there having been some voices of reason internally saying, should we? But it turns out that they ended up doing it. Also, some inappropriate comments have been reported as having been made by the MC of the event, who apparently said, and then this quote, considering the current affairs, the whole Jeju Air aspect and such, we're sorry to tell you. And then they kind of turned the tone around. The company will give you your bonus.
In poor
very
taste.
distasteful,
Right.
which, I mean, fine, that is getting a bonus. Financial compensation is separate from what happened, but let's not use that as a fodder for your joke. Let's not use that as, a lead for
the fact that they even had like a party.
Right.
And the fact that they're making comments like that.
Exactly. Very inappropriate. So the hotel did not comment to the questions posed by the press, but Aegeon Group's CEO, AK Holdings CEO, Ko Jun, he visited the airport on Saturday and apologized. He bowed to the families, took full responsibility as the person in charge of the group's operations. The families mostly stayed very quiet and they accepted the apology, but also silently left that spot soon after he was done speaking.
Well, sometimes, actions speaking louder than words. And it's actually, average citizens who are stepping up to support the families in the county of Muan, apparently.
Right. So pretty much the on-site search has ended and the families have left the airport. But let's wrap up with what people have done in really considerate things and what they were looking out for. So a volunteer group called The Promise, they had set up a childcare center at the airport for the families. For families to drop their kids off or even spend time with them in a separate area because... And here's the thing, kids will be kids, and we can find solace in the fact that kids will still find joy and, laughter, but sometimes when there is mourning right next to them, that may be inappropriate. So they thought of that and set up kind of a playroom. Also, unfortunately, because of what was happening, parents would sometimes have to go and confirm the identity or, identify the remains. So in those cases, the parents were able to drop the kids off in this playroom. There was a staff on duty at all times. Also, an association of Jeonnam pharmacists had set up a free pharmacy, a little booth for any emergency medication. And the pharmacy association from across the country had donated supplies.
I see.
About 4 or 5 pharmacists had taken time off to come man the booth and took shifts. Volunteers also held up signs banning photos and even posting anything with the faces of the families on social media after several unfortunate incidents that did happen regarding social media. Because once again, if you don't... legality and what's appropriate, they're kind of two different things. Right. So some people did post photos of them. The police have they've set up a dedicated team to take down and investigate malicious comments against the victims and the families. Unfortunately, as you have said earlier, these comments are happening. We really don't know why one would be driven to make those comments, but please refrain from that.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're going to call it a wrap for today's Wagle, but we'll be sure to check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
All right, here is your updated traffic and weather. It's time for your updated traffic. It is 8:16 right now. A broken down cargo truck on 관문대로 from Gwacheon Gogagyo Bridge to Budu Sagori, right by the pier intersection. So please be aware of that truck that is broken down. There's an accident inside Yunsan Tunnel going towards the Hwamyeongdong direction as well. Congestion detected on 중앙대로 from Gwacheon three-way intersection to Choryang intersection. Also looking quite slow on Chungyeol대로 from Minam intersection to Daesung intersection. Currently, it is 5 degrees Celsius here in Centum. The daytime high will go up to 10 degrees, although with the wind chill factor, it might feel a little colder than that. Across the country, rain or snow is forecast, especially in the mountainous regions. Parts of Gyeonggi, Gangwon, and Jeju are expected to see up to 5 centimeters of snow. Bad find us levels forecast throughout the country. And this was your updated traffic and weather. And here is All By Myself by Celine Dion.
I never needed anyone, and making love was just fun. Those days are gone. been alone. I think of all the friends I've known. But when I dial the telephone, nobody's home. Sure. Sometimes I feel so insecure, and love so distant and obscure remains the cure. Never needed anyone, and making love was just for fun. Those days are gone. All by myself, don't wanna be all by
Such a good pick for a song right there. Right now we're getting a message from TJ Waver who says, Taejin Waver who says, on the way to 김해 Airport, 동희 김해 방향 1km 남겨두고 사고 났어요. 그리고 동김에 500m 남기고 여기도 또 충돌 사고 났어요. Apparently there are multiple collisions on the way towards Kimhae, and you heard our traffic report, especially just a little while ago. So yes, please be careful as we start our Monday morning together. Speaking of living alone, though, I asked you if you have ever lived on your own, and many of you actually don't really look forward to it. Hisuk Waver says this: just the thought of that makes me feel unsafe, especially at night. I'm a little bit worried about safety. So for this particular waiver, not really looking forward to it. Tommy apparently really misses living on his own and probably recommends it to everybody else out there. So it's very much, down the middle in terms of people who have experienced or who want to experience it. But people seem to think being responsible is one of the key components of living on your own. Well, we're going to get to our special interview, so I'll be back with our expert in just a moment. With the first full week of 2025 ahead of us, many of us are kickstarting our fresh start and, of course, those New Year's resolutions. But let's be real, most of these ambitious goals won't make it past February if we look at the statistics. But what if this year the secret to success isn't doing more but doing less? What about that? With a little bit of strategy and maybe a lot of self-kindness, this could be the year resolutions actually stick. Let's find out how. We have joining us Dr. Stephanie McWilliams, Service Assistant Professor of Clinical Psychology at West Virginia University. Hi, Happy New Year.
Hello, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. Why do so many New Year's resolutions fail after, for some people, just a few weeks, and for many, maybe a couple of months?
Yeah, so in my opinion, it comes down to the planning, right? If you're going to go on a big trip, you're going to go on a journey, you've got to pack a suitcase, you've got to pack your car or whatever the case may be. And when we're setting goals, sometimes we just don't pack the right things or we don't go about it in the right way. So the first number one is why. If you're going to go on a journey, you should have a purpose. You should have a reason to go to that destination. And if we haven't solidified why we're setting that goal and why we want to achieve that goal, then the likelihood of achieving it goes way down.
I love that analogy, though, that journey and purpose, and of course, the why. So what can we do to succeed this time around? So why is important. What else do we need to do?
Yeah, understanding that setting goals and achieving goals has to be a very conscious behavior. It's really natural for us as human beings to want to change things, but we have to be conscious about it, really conscientious, if you will. And so we know what we want, we just don't often know how to get there. So in my opinion, one of the best things we can do is rely on our social needs as humans and get a team together, get some people to back you up and be your cheerleaders and go on the journey with you.
I like that idea, cheerleaders. Yes. Well, you suggest working with others to achieve resolutions. So hence, maybe people who have like-minded goals, would that be helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have other people that share a very similar why to you, then you can commiserate both in the highs and the lows. Because honestly, achieving our goals, there's going to be some lows. It's not always going to be fun. But if you have someone to compare notes with and commiserate with, it definitely helps us along the way. We're social beings, right?
Yes.
And there's also this sense of commitment, right? Sometimes we're very quick to let ourselves down because maybe we're not holding ourselves in as high of a priority as we do our kids or our spouse or our family or our colleagues, right? When we have a commitment to something bigger than ourselves, sometimes that helps us stay engaged.
Well, speaking of those lows, Dr. McWilliams, how can we have, let's say, a failure plan in place to help us stay motivated, especially when we kind of, make mistakes or we kind of get a little further away from our goals?
You bet. There's a saying that we've probably all heard, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And I'm going to say you should plan to fail. Because on every journey, no matter what you are trying to do, there are going to be bumps along the road that bring us down a notch. And if we have a good plan in place for when that does happen, because it will happen inevitably, then we can keep our mindset on the change still being possible despite there being mistakes along the way. So if we plan for the mistakes, we're more likely to keep our motivation high.
Yes. And so in terms of these goals, though, even one of our listeners chiming in saying, maybe sometimes New Year's resolutions are not achievable because we set our standards too high, or maybe there are life events, etc. So when we set our goals in the first place, what's a good way of doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but I cannot juggle. Right? You think of juggling, right?
Yes.
And balls in the air. And I can use that analogy very often. But if I were to attempt to juggle, I'm not saying I will, but if I were, I would assume that trying to juggle 10 balls in the air would be nearly impossible. Whereas 6 might be a little bit more manageable, but 3 sounds like, okay, I can start there. That seems reasonable to me. So I would say first and foremost, prioritize why you're doing what you're doing and what are the most important things that you need to focus on.
Yes.
And related to that is how are your goals interrelated, right? So an example I have is, let's say I want to exercise daily, right? That's something I think a lot of people say in the new year. I need to exercise more. Well, maybe I'm just exhausted. So maybe instead of saying I want to exercise more, I say, you know what? Let me focus on getting a good 7 or 8 hours of sleep so then I'll feel like I have the energy to exercise. But then I also want to think about if I exercise, my energy is likely to go up as well. So how are my goals interrelated? And so sometimes it's a little bit more bang for our buck. If we think of it that way. So it's not necessarily reducing our overall goals, but rather saying, I'm going to chunk them together. I'm going to kind of put them in these categories and let them do the work of a chain reaction, if you will.
That does make sense, though, if you kind of chunk them together, as you say, to help us better achieve those goals. That makes sense to us. So when we talk about progress and kind of tying that in with success, I mean, how small or how big of a bit, progress should be made where we can deem it a success, and are we even viewing it in the right way?
Yeah, I think defining success is really hard for us as humans, right? We have these big things that we want to achieve in our life as a whole, and we oftentimes are looking months, if not years ahead, right? In my opinion, when we're trying to set new behaviors, we have to think day by day, right? So if at the end of the day, I can say I did one little thing that moves me in the right direction, that moves the needle in the right direction, then that's a success, right? Did I necessarily meet my full goal? Well, no, of course not. But if I'm taking baby steps to do that, then that tends to fuel our motivation to say, yes, I can do this again tomorrow, despite it being a challenge.
Yes. And going back to what you said earlier about maybe not having too many goals, or at least, as some experts say, kind of focusing on priorities, what's important. How can we whittle away and kind of get down to the core of what's really important in setting goals to make it more attainable throughout the year?
You bet. Defining our why is sometimes hard because we tend to focus outwardly so much, right, on and everyone else in our lives and what other people expect of us. So I think we have to turn the focus within a little bit. Are your goals going to bring you joy in your life? Are they going to change your life for the better in some way, shape, or form? And if the answer is no, then you should probably remove them from your list, or at least move them down lower on the list, because that intrinsic gain, right, of I feel successful, I feel joy, I feel productive, that's what's going to help keep us moving rather than the things that other people expect of us.
Yes, yes. And how specific should we be when we're setting these goals?
Specificity is important because if we're too broad, then it's hard to define our success, right? But I think for every goal, there should be multiple markers of what shows that success or productivity is being made.
Yes.
So quality over quantity is, I guess, really what I'm getting at is if you can say, I did this well, was it perfect? No. But if I can pride myself on having put in the effort and kind of coming out on the right side of it, then that's definitely worth checking the box of I had a success today.
Right. And so how can we be kind to ourselves even when we inevitably fail, like in our daily goals? Maybe we don't reach a certain thing that we want to for today. How can we get back on track and not feel so miserable and kind of chastise ourselves? How can we do this?
Yeah, you bet. I often kind of go into this mindset of having a toolbox. And, we have to be able to draw things out when we need them. And so if I were to not necessarily achieve my goal for that day, let's say I said, okay, I want to exercise and I didn't do that today. In that moment, that very moment where I recognize, I didn't quite meet what I wanted to do.
Yes.
I need to set my intention for the next day or for the next, hour of that particular day and say, okay, I'm going to take a trip up and down my stairs, or I'm going to go for a walk around the block, right? That sort of thing. So setting intentions.
Okay.
The other thing is self-talk, right? We talk to ourselves in such a way that we oftentimes wouldn't even talk so negatively to our pets. We're pretty nasty to ourselves sometimes. And we have to realize that that's going to drag us down. So I oftentimes recommend having a theme song, a song that motivates you, that you can put on and that just, gives you the energy that you need. Or maybe you write a note on your bathroom mirror or your refrigerator so that you have something right there in front of you to remind you, hey, you're doing this for a reason.
Yes.
And then writing things down, just, having an event log of the days that went really well so that you can go back and reflect on those and say, hey, what did I do that day that I can try to do again? I can try to repeat that.
Well, as we wrap up our conversation today, any last words for our listeners to give them a little bit of optimism, a little bit of a oomph as they get started on getting to those resolutions?
Yeah, give yourself grace, right? We're on this journey and it's not always easy. Find the tools that help you. Maybe that is a special person in your life that gives you really great support. Maybe it's music or poetry or art or nature. Find what drives you. And every single day, allow yourself to reflect on what's one thing that you did better today than you did yesterday.
Yes. Well, what great last words to end it on. But thank you so much for coming on air with us and sharing methods to sticking to our resolutions. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Happy New Year.
Everybody, this was Dr. Stephanie McWilliams, and we talked about maybe doing a little less in order to reach success for the year 2025. So whittle down maybe those resolutions and be a little bit more specific. And as she said, to be gracious, to be kind to yourself. We're going to take a short song break. This is Padam Padam by Edith Piaf, and I'll be back.
Cet air qui m'obsède jour et nuit, cet air n'est pas né d'aujourd'hui. Il vient d'aussi loin que je viens, traîné par 100 000 musiciens. Un jour cet air me rendra folle, 100 fois j'ai voulu dire pourquoi, mais il m'a coupé la parole. Il parle toujours avant moi et sa voix couvre ma voix. Padam, 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 il arrive en courant derrière moi. Padam, 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 il me fait le coup du souviens-toi. Padam, 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 c'est un air qui me montre du doigt et je traîne après moi comme une drôle d'erreur cet air qui sait tout par cœur. Il dit rappelle-toi tes amours, rappelle-toi puisque c'est ton tour. Y a pas de raison pour que tu ne pleures pas avec tes souvenirs sur les bras. Et moi je revois ce qui reste, mes 20 ans font battre le tambour. Je vois s'entrebattre des gestes, toute la comédie des amours sur cette terre qui va toujours. Padam, 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 des je t'aime de 14 juillet. Padam, 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 des toujours qu'on achète au rabais. Padam, 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 des veux-tu en voilà par un paquet. Et tout ça pour tomber juste au coin de la rue sur l'air qui m'a reconnu. Écoutez le chahut qu'il m'a fait, comme si tout mon passé défilait. Faut garder du chagrin pour après, j'en ai tout un solfège sur cette terre qui bat comme un cœur de
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Stay tuned.
It is time for Bobby and Business Perspectives.
Good morning, Catherine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm like just happy.
Happy New Year.
I know, Happy New Year. Indeed.
You could say that. Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
We are doing a recap.
Yes.
Of what we started last week.
Yes.
And then we're going to continue our discussion for business perspectives. So why don't you relate to our listeners what we started last week?
Yeah, so last week, as we were capping the end of the year, just wanted to try to highlight some of the larger business stories that caught our attention in 2024. So we're gonna kind of do a little recap and then pick up where we left off last week. So one of the bigger stories from last week is in the world of EVs or electric vehicles, right? And so in 2024, for the first time in history, when we look at the top competitors out there, BYD, a Chinese manufacturer, they overtook Tesla.
Yeah, that was big news.
In unit sales of battery electric vehicles.
Right.
And, and also they overtook Tesla in overall sales revenue as well. By quarter 3 of 2024, last year now we can say.
They did.
They surpassed Tesla, 28 billion versus Tesla 25 billion for the quarter. Right. And now for BYD, it's interesting because they produce both battery electric vehicles and hybrids. So they have a larger, number of vehicles or types, right? But it's pretty interesting because BYD had such a steep rise because they got into the space in 2022.
Yes, because that's like a new company when you think about it.
But they have a huge market in their own country
Right.
too. Yeah, so it's growing gangbusters. The other one, another story that made headlines was in the world of tech. So NVIDIA became the world's most valuable company in 2024.
Yes.
And they overtook Apple as in the top spot in terms of market capitalization. So NVIDIA had market cap of $3.43 trillion versus Apple at $3.38 trillion.
Like the economy of a country.
Yes.
Yes.
And now, again, with AI continuing to boom, like the chip maker, their share price just continued to have a meteoric rise. Their stock last year risen by almost 190%. So that's another note.
Yes.
The other one in the world of tech, we saw the largest IT outage that happened in 2024.
Sure.
July 19th, faulty software update from Crowdsource, which is a cybersecurity firm, caused the largest IT outage in history.
I know.
Locked up an estimated 8.5 million Windows devices. Got the blue screen of death. The impact of it has been where flights were airplane flights were grounded.
Sure.
Online banking systems were frozen, and even disruptions to the emergency service providers.
Yes.
And one insurer has said that incident cost Fortune 500 companies roughly $5.4 billion. Yep.
Yes.
So even with the advances of technologies, there's still things that, crimp us at times with technology.
So what other top related business stories?
Another one is just getting back into the office again.
Like literally.
Yes.
Physically.
It's still been a challenge.
Yes.
So 2024, another year of struggle in terms of getting workers back, especially post-pandemic. Companies have been pushing for employees to come back into the office more frequently, as a lot of business leaders are they're increasingly turning their back to remote work.
Sure.
Right. Now, we started to see more of a hybrid model, and I think that's what we're going to see going forward, where there's a compromise both from the workers and the employers.
Yes.
One of the bigger companies, Amazon, they instigated a 5-day return to the office in 2024, ruffling some feathers out there.
Apparently, yes. Let's jump ahead a little bit because I do want to get to the regional stories in a bit. What about in healthcare?
Yeah. So innovations in healthcare. So with the acceleration of technology, we've seen a lot of impacts in healthcare overall. So one of them is AI-driven diagnostics.
Right.
So improve diagnostic accuracy and prediction of patient outcomes using AI. Right?
Yes.
Also, another area of healthcare was personalized medicine. So the tailoring of treatments to individual genetic profiles, right? And another big one in 2024 was telehealth.
Yes.
So really providing remote access areas to healthcare services, via video and whatnot. So those are some big innovations in healthcare that got a lot more popularity. Again, like telehealth became popular during the pandemic.
Right.
But just, being able to see what can happen in remote areas.
Yes.
Right? Also, another big one was cryptocurrency regulations.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Major one.
Yeah. Now, this has been evolving globally, right? So, like, for example, in the EU, they introduced the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation, and that requires licenses for crypto insurers and service providers. So again, a lot more regulation coming into this space. Also in the U.S., they proposed a Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act and the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
And it defines crypto as a security or a commodity.
Oh, okay. So,
I
mean, just a few years back, the regulators didn't even want to touch crypto with like a 10-foot pole, as they say, right?
Exactly. So
they didn't
now
want
it's
to talk about it.
Mainstream everywhere, and additional countries are planning new regulations. So Australia, the UK, Brazil, and South Korea.
And speaking of South Korea, we're going to bring it back home. Some business-related stories about our region, our neck of the woods.
Yeah, so a couple big stories that happened in 2024. Korean Air completes the acquisition of Asiana Airlines.
Yes, recently.
Yes. So Korean Air finalized the acquisition of Asiana Airlines, bringing the country's two largest full-service carriers a step closer to become a top 10 global mega carrier. So December 12th of 2024, Korean Air acquired 63.9% of Asiana. They did obtain all their approvals from regulators in all 14 mandatory reporting bodies, which included the EU and the US.
Right.
Now, going forward, Korean Air will maintain Asiana as a subsidiary airline for 2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
And then finalize this merger process in 2026.
I get it. Okay.
And post-merger, this could place Korean Air among the top 10 biggest airlines in the world, ahead of Japan Airlines.
Oh, really? Okay, that big.
Yeah. And in terms of the integration, this integrated airline now will own a total of 238 aircrafts, about over 27,000 employees, and have 186 operational routes.
So definitely a bigger version.
A much bigger version, I'd say. Yes.
Yes. And, some people might worry a little. I mean, is it going to be a monopoly? And, domestically, it's going to be the number one flagship carrier, flag carrier airline.
It will be. And I'll tell you this, from Chicago, we used to have both carriers.
Yes.
They came in, and about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I think, Asiana stopped serving Chicago. And yes, the concerns are real.
Right.
Because I felt it in the pocketbook.
You felt it, right?
Yes,
I mean,
for sure.
Okay. So it's just not in my little head.
No.
It's real.
Yes.
All right. What's another thing?
All right. Korean food exports projected to hit 10 billion in 2024. And it's led by the surge of ramen and kimbap.
Not surprised.
Yes, I mean a cultural phenomenon, right?
Right.
New record high is to be set with the continued strong demand for ramen, rice products, and snacks. And through November, because that's what we have in terms of data.
Yes.
Korea's food exports hit a new high, slightly over $9 billion, which is 8.1% up from the same period last year.
That is not minor.
No.
8%?
8%, yes.
Okay.
And that amount is nearing the government's annual target of $10 billion.
Yes.
Now, sales of the top export is instant noodles. Rose 30% to
30%?
Yes. So we thought 8% was big for that period, but 30% just for instant noodles to $1.1 billion through November.
Okay.
Some companies, so Samyang Foods, they had a really good year with its Buldak ramen product.
Oh, it was like a global phenomenon.
Yes. You'll watch any YouTube videos or TikTok videos. They further expanded their global reach through its first overseas factory in China.
Oh, okay.
So some export investments for them.
Yes.
Also, Shinramen, they invested in an export-only plant here in Busan.
Oh.
Yes. And set to establish a sales unit in Europe in 2025.
That's good. I mean, for Busan, obviously, but I'm just saying that's showing you the high demand that they're like building more plants.
Yeah, and just their reach, right? Going globally, right?
Yes.
Rice products like the frozen kimbap, instant steamed rice, and tteokbokki.
Oh.
Continue to rise due to demand in major markets like the U.S. and China.
I never thought tteokbokki would get that popular because I always imagined, isn't that too spicy for certain taste buds for certain segments of the population in the world?
Yes.
Apparently not. So I was wrong on that one.
But think about the palate, people's palate. Even that Buldak ramen.
Yeah.
I mean, people make a challenge. They make challenges out of it. How much heat you could take.
Right.
So now in the U.S., imported $1.4 billion worth of Korean food. That's up 20%.
20.
And,
2-0.
Yeah, 2-0. And China imported 1.38 billion worth of Korean food, up 7%.
Ooh, two major markets.
Huge markets, and they're growing.
Yes.
And it's just interesting, just the overall cultural phenomenon. You know, when we think about K-dramas, K-pop, K-food, K-culture, it just seems... Yeah. I'm questioning what's next.
Yes. Well, it's time to get to our phrase of the week. What do you have for us?
Well, the phrase of the week is time to unwind.
Time to unwind.
Yes. And, you know, as we were capping off the year of 2024, right? Just to have some time to just relax and let go of any of the worries or the stresses or things that happened in 2024. That's just a little encouragement out there for our listeners.
Okay.
A lot has gone on, and there's still a lot of things that are uncertain in the year ahead.
Sure.
Right? But I usually try to encourage all of us to try to look ahead and get prepared for what lies ahead. But this week, you know, I want to, as we look back on 2024, I want to encourage all of us to take some time out of our busy lives to unwind and relax, look back on 2024, and think about our own stories. Think about some milestones. Think about some of the challenges. And most importantly, think about some of the learnings that we could cling on to as we venture into this new year.
Yes.
So I look forward, look forward to see what 2025 has in store for all of us.
Well, I am glad that you were able to bring this to us on the very first full week. Of January, especially last week was because of the tragedy.
Yes.
We can have some encouraging thoughts on our minds as we start our week today. So thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and recapping and maybe taking a look forward to ahead at what might be hot and trendy
in 2025
for business. Yes. Well, we look forward to next week with you as well. So thank you, Bobby.
Yep. Have a great week, everyone.
All right. Time to say goodbye for this Monday morning. Remember, a lot of reports of traffic congestion and accidents this morning as we begin our first full week, maybe because a lot of people are going back to work. So please take your time and stay healthy, everybody. Final song for today is Before You Go by Louis Capaldi. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Like everyone else, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, but I was just kidding myself. Our every moment I started a place, 'cause now that they're gone, all I hear were the words that I needed to say. When you hurt under the surface, like troubled water running cold. Well, time can heal, but this won't. Before you go, was never the right time, whenever you're cold, went little by little by little until there was nothing at all. Our every moment I started to play, but all I can think about is seeing that look on your face. When you hurt under the surface, like troubled water running cold. Well, time can heal, but this won't.